Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
From makeshift studios deep in the heart of stately Maine Manor, this is the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris. Folks, I hope that you are having a great week. I've had an interesting week. Let me tell you about what I call adventures in Joey Land. This is the CT edition. I have been having abdominal pain off and on since the beginning of the year, and they couldn't find anything, and so they scheduled me for a CT exam, and I took it last Thursday, and so it was at the main hospital. You know, you've got to go in and check in, and they ask you the questions about COVID and check your temperature. I finally get through what I call the first barrier. Then you have to register, and they put a bracelet around your wrist. That lets people know that you are allowed to be in the hospital. And they tell me where to go. I go there, sign more forms, do more things. And since I'm having a CT scan, I have to drink that contrast stuff. Well, thankfully, they could mix it with something. And so I had lemonade. And they set me up for the IV for the contrast dye to go in when they start the CT. They send me back. I do all that. They get all that done. And then they said, drink the first bottle now. It was early in the morning. Start drinking the second one at 8:15 a.m. Okay, so then they send me back to the lobby and I'm all set. And I'm sitting there and I finish my first bottle and I have to wait till I start drinking my second one. And so I take my phone out and I'm looking on social media, and so I just give an update. And this is what I put on Instagram, but linked to my Twitter and Facebook at The Joey Harris on all three platforms, by the way. And I do a face shot of me with my glasses on and my face mask, and this is what I put. This is our at the hospital for CT scan to determine what is wrong with me face. But I didn't use any identifying marks, no parentheses, no quotation marks or anything. So some people thought that there was something wrong with my face, but I don't know why I would describe it as what's wrong with me face, like with me face. So that part I don't understand, but in fact, I was getting text messages and like, what's wrong with your face? I'm like, it's a poorly worded status. Don't worry about it. And I explained what was wrong with it. So it was a very poorly worded status. I finished the second bottle. They finally come and get me. They said, we're a little backed up here. There's another machine in another part of the hospital. We're going to let you use that one. And it's closer to the exit so you can get out earlier anyway. So I go through all of these corridors and going through doors. I couldn't repeat the process now, if you ask me. I could not repeat that route. I go, they set me up, I'm on a table, and it looks like I'm going through one of those newfangled Dyson fans, you know, the bladeless ones. It was just a big hoop. And that's what I was going through to get the CT scan. And the guy says, have you ever had one of these before? I said, yes, I have, but it's been a few years. And he said, well, you know, when they go in, you may feel a warm feeling and all that. And I said, yeah, I remember that. And he said, other than that, listen in, and it'll tell you when to hold your breath, when to release, and all of that. And just try to be comfortable and stay still. So I'm starting to do that, and they take me to run through the first go through, I guess. And I'm come back, and I'm stopped And all of a sudden, I feel an incredible coolness go over my arm. And I said, I thought he said warmness. Maybe he meant cool and said warm. He got those confused. And then I realized that the mechanism, where the dye starts to go into the IV, not the actual IV part yet, but I guess the place where it connects. I don't know how else to explain it. It exploded. And dye is starting to run all over my arm. And the guy's like, whoa. And he comes over there and he has to physically, I have my arms up over my head. He has to physically hold that area together so that the dye will start to go into the IV whilst I'm having my CT scan done. It's the weirdest thing, but I got all of that done. Everything came out great. I left and was not feeling the best, but I had taken the day off anyway. So I spent a lot of the rest of the day just sleeping. We continued our date experiences. My wife and I should, like the whole Vince McMahon pronouns pal. My wife and I. And just the way things were, we did 2 date adventures this week. The first one we pulled out that says go get a beverage and ride around and look at cars, because my wife is wanting to buy a new SUV, and we'll probably do it this summer early. And so we're going around Sunday, and we were looking at different kinds that she liked and comparing prices. And there are some really nice SUVs out there, folks, and they have really expensive price tags with them. So that was interesting. And then we came back and we picked another one out that says get up early and go to, we have a favorite bagel shop that we frequent here. It said get up early and go to the bagel shop and buy bagels for breakfast and eat it there. So we got up early this morning since my wife had a doctor's appointment. She didn't go into work today. And so we got up early, did that. But she needed to come back because she had an early morning Zoom meeting. And so we're leaving the bagel place. We're about a quarter of a mile away from it, and she can't find her phone. And I said, I bet you left it at the bagel place. So I start to circle the block, and she's like, no, I'm going to be late. Take me home, and then you have to go back and get it. And so I take her home. I come back. I look at the table that we were sitting at, and it's right there. Nobody has sat at the table because there's a phone right in the middle of it. And I think people thought, oh, well, somebody's sitting there. Let's go to another table. And with COVID and the regulations, about every other table is marked off, and there aren't that many people eating in. Most of them are getting it and doing takeout. And so I picked up her phone, no problem. But we had noticed when we were in there was a couple that came in, and the man with his face mask on looks exactly like my dad. Which is strange because I knew that if it were my dad, what's he doing in Maine at 6 o'clock in the morning getting bagels? I mean, you're not that far from me. You don't even drop by and say hello, but it was not my dad. But it's strange to go out and see someone that you think, oh, they look familiar. That's strange. But I digress. Today, we're looking at Saturday night's main event from March of 1986. This was Saturday night's main event. Number 5 was shown on NBC on March the 1st, 1986. It was taped February 15th, 1986 from the Arizona Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Phoenix, Arizona. There were 12,000 people in attendance, and the show did a 10.0 rating on NBC. This is the total setup show for WrestleMania 2. Mr. T is shown hitting the heavy bag. He yells at Mean Gene, who is trying to interview him. We then go to our introductions. Vince McMahon and Jesse Ventura open the show. Jesse looks very colorful, and you can tell he's more comfortable in his role. Flashback to Piper's Pit and Hulk Hogan saying that Mr. T will accept the challenge to box battling Bob Orton. Hogan does a Mr. T impression during this. Mean Gene Okerlund then interviews Bob Orton and Roddy Piper about the boxing match. Then a field report tape of Mean Gene with Mr. T after a sparring session. We then go to Mr. T versus Bob Orton with Roddy Piper in a boxing match. The guy checking the gloves looks like the dad from Home Alone, by the way. This is a little action and a lot of preening and gaga. Orton doing a lot of showboating. Mr. T wins via countout in round 2. T hits Piper and the crowd loves it. This sets up Roddy Piper versus Mr. T at WrestleMania 2. Piper and Orton whip Mr. T with a belt, and Jesse says it looks like Roots 2. Yikes. That is our awkward moment of the week, folks. I wish we had a sponsor to sponsor that section. Mr. T has 2 different colored patterned socks on, and when I notice it, it's all that I can think about. Mean Gene is with Mr. T, who wants Piper. They would go on to meet in a boxing match at WrestleMania 2. Bobby Heenan and King Kong Bundy are then shown with Mean Gene, and they want Hogan. We then go to King Kong Bundy versus Steve Gatorwolf. This is a total squash match. Gatorwolf is a piece of human slime in real life, folks. I'm not going to say what he has done, but look him up if you're curious. It doesn't last long, thankfully. Bundy demands a 5 count. Mean Gene is with Magnificent Morocco. Morocco says Mr. Fuji has the flu, so Bobby Heenan will be in his corner tonight. Mr. Fuji has some strange sounds coming from him. Mean Gene is then shown with Hulk Hogan. He says he's ready for Morocco. WWF title match. Hulk Hogan versus Don Morocco. Hogan coming out to Real American, and it is officially his theme song now. There's a nice little back and forth match. Both Morocco and Heenan bumping for Hogan. Morocco is just so underrated. Morocco is actually getting more offense than most Hogan's opponents do. Hogan gets the edge. The crowd loves it when Hogan starts his comeback. He hits the leg drop. Heenan then comes in for the DQ. Nobody bumps like Heenan, especially in the ring with his injured neck all those years. This is a setup for King Kong Bundy to come in. A triple team on Hogan. King Kong Bundy then hits 3 avalanches and a splash on Hogan. Heenan is pushing Bundy into Hogan to give him an added boost. Then another splash. Fans throw trash into the ring. They are really driving Bundy as a threat headed into WrestleMania 2. Hogan stretchered out as Vince and Jesse recap what happened. They speculate about internal damage to Hogan. They go to commercial, and it is a hushed and morose atmosphere as they come back. Gorilla Monsoon is shown clearing the way for the stretcher and climbing into the ambulance that is on its way to the hospital. Pre-tape interview with Mean Gene and the Dream Team. They say that the Bulldogs are flukes and they will have no problems with them. They show the non-title win of the Bulldogs from January 1986. We then have our tag team title match. The British Bulldogs, the Dynamite Kid and Davey Boy Smith with Captain Lou Albano versus the Dream Team, Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake with Luscious Johnny V. This is all Bulldogs to begin. They can't get the pin though. Valentine then coming back. All 4 brawl outside at one point. The Dream Team then in control, but Dynamite Kid breaks up a Valentine figure 4 on Davey Boy Smith. Valentine can't get the pin. Bulldogs coming back. They can't get the pin either. Back and forth. Fun match with a fluke finish. Greg Valentine and Davey Boy Smith both collapse, but Valentine's leg goes over Davey Boy Smith for the pin. This sets up the WrestleMania 2 match. Mean Gene is at the hospital waiting on a report on Hulk Hogan's injuries. Vince McMahon then introduces the Hulk Hogan Real American video. The video includes shots of Hogan playing bass. JYD versus adorable Adrian Adonis with Jimmy Hart. Pre-recorded comments. Adonis says he has always hated dogs. Jimmy Hart says he has a big surprise for JYD. All JYD to start, and Adonis is bumping like crazy for JYD. JYD incredibly over with the crowd. Adonis does a crazy over-the-top rope bump, and JYD has a headbutt through the ropes to Adonis and Hart. Big JYD chant goes out. Junkyard Dog then throws Hart into Adonis, and they both take a bump over the top rope. Hart wraps Junkyard Dog's ankle to the ropes while the referee is distracted. Adonis can't get the pin, and a JYD chant goes out again. The referee is knocked out. Hart sets the megaphone up for Adonis to run JYD into it, but JYD reverses it and gets the pin. He goes after Hart next, but gets attacked by Adonis. Mean Gene is with the doctor. It is the WWF's go-to guy, Dr. Panovich. Hulk has injuries to the ribs, back, and neck, but no internal bleeding. Vince and Jesse then recap the evening and sign off from Phoenix. Hey folks, if you like the show, please leave a review in iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your podcast platform of choice. There are a number of ways that you can contact me. You can follow the show's Twitter at CupOfJoePod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I am at The Joey Harris. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from Stately Maine Manor.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.